Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down complex topics by going straight to the source material. Today, we're digging into something you've probably seen everywhere lately, a decades-old debate that's suddenly back in the headlines with a whole lot of force.
It really all kicked off with this. This statement from media personality Tucker Carlson pretty much acted like a match on dry tinder. It's reignited a really fierce, really old debate and has dragged 9/11 conspiracy theories right back into the mainstream spotlight.
So what is going on here? Why the sudden resurgence? Let's get right into the event that's sparking this whole firestorm.
At the very heart of this is a new documentary series from Carlson. It directly calls into question the official story of 9/11, and almost overnight it has become a massive flashpoint for online debate, pulling in a huge audience and kicking off some seriously heated conversations.
Okay, so let's be super clear about our goal today. We are not here to prove or disprove any specific claim. Honestly, that's a whole other rabbit hole. What we are here to do is explain the phenomenon of its return. Why this and why now? By looking at the online discourse that has just exploded around it.
And that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? The timing. One Reddit user who started a huge online discussion about this put it perfectly. They said the arguments feel like they're just recycled from 15 years ago. So the real question is, why are they coming back with such a vengeance now?
When you look at the online debate, it really seems to boil down to two competing ideas. On one side, you have people arguing that this is some kind of coordinated propaganda campaign, timed just right to push a political agenda. But on the other side, you've got folks saying, no, this is just a symptom of a much bigger problem, a deep and growing distrust in government and all official institutions. And this quote from that same user who started the Reddit thread just hits the nail on the head. The focus isn't really on the old evidence anymore. It's about the new timing and what new motivations might be driving this whole conversation today. All right, so when people do get into the nitty-gritty of the event itself, what are they actually debating? Well, as it turns out, the core talking points have been around for a long, long time.
This is absolutely fascinating. It's like an argument echoing through time. You see, back in 2010, some user on a science forum on Reddit is asking questions about the physics of the World Trade Center 7 collapse. Now you fast forward almost 15 years, and Tucker Carlson is raising the exact same points in a huge interview.
Now, just for some context, the collapse of WTC-7 has always been a cornerstone of this debate. We're talking about a 47-story building that fell down hours after the Twin Towers. And here's the kicker. It was never hit by a plane. The official report says fires brought it down, but for a lot of people, that explanation just doesn't add up. And this question, asked on that science forum more than a decade ago, it really captures the core of the skepticism that's still fueling these discussions. It's a question about physics that, for many, has simply never been answered to their satisfaction.
But as you can imagine, the debate moves past physics really quickly. It spirals out into this really complex web of accusations about who's pushing these stories and, way more importantly, why.
So, according to all these online discussions, who do people think is actually behind this whole resurgence? Well, get ready because the list of who's being accused is long, it's all over the place, and it's often totally contradictory. You've got fingers being pointed at media figures like Carlson, at foreign governments like Iran and Russia, and at domestic political groups on all sides. What this really shows is how quickly the conversation stops being about the event itself and becomes a battle over who controls the story. And this is just a perfect illustration of how the whole debate can get, well, meta. Here you have one user challenging the person who even started the discussion, basically accusing them of being a foreign agent. So the real takeaway here is that the discussion very quickly becomes less about finding the truth of the event and way more about questioning the motives and loyalties of everyone in the conversation. It's not a debate about the topic, it's a debate about the debaters. And this all builds into a much, much larger theme, one that you could argue pretty much defines our entire political world right now, a crisis of trust. One Reddit user came up with this really powerful analogy to explain why people are suddenly looking back at old events with new eyes. The idea is that institutions, our friend Charlie in this story, have damaged public trust so much with their recent actions that people are now questioning everything they were told in the past. And Tucker Carlson himself frames his whole series as a direct response to this. He basically argues that it's the government's own secrecy on things like 9/11 and other major events that creates the vacuum for these theories to grow in the first place. And as Pierce Morgan points out here, this isn't just about one event. It reflects a fundamental shift in our society. The biggest divide might not be right versus left anymore. It might just be between those who trust our institutions and those who absolutely do not.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought to consider. Maybe the return of these decades-old theories isn't about new evidence at all. Maybe it's about an old story finding new life because it's rushing in to fill a void created by a deep and widening crisis of trust. And if that's true, what other old stories are just waiting in the wings?